opiates has become a crisis across the world, certainly in the United States, and within our communities as well. We spent many, many years pretending that nothing affects us and that, we're this insular Jewish community and therefore, we don't have any of these issues. The reality is that drugs doesn't discriminate, drugs doesn't really care, and anybody's susceptible to getting caught up in it. And opiates is a huge problem in America, and people die. So we're going to really discuss, I mean, if you want to go through some of the statistics, more people, particularly at younger ages, die from overdoses than motor vehicle accidents, than homicides, motor vehicle accidents, and suicides combined. It's the leading cause of death, of premature death among New York City residents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not great, and it affects us. Just try to jump through that. Do we know what opiates are? Covered already, right? So what are opiates? Opiates are painkillers. They're pain relievers. They block the pain. And this isn't just limited to, your street drugs, not limited to heroin, but opiates could include, prescription pain medicines as well, which we'll get into. So, people getting it from their doctors think that it's all okay and it's totally fine and just following my doctor's orders. That's, the best one. I'm just doing as my doctor prescribed. And really, it's essentially chemically the same thing, and you get hooked on that the same way. So you may start off not looking to be, do drugs. Someone for a toothache, and they're getting prescribed opiates. It's the same thing, and it's the same risk. Essentially, it causes feelings of euphoria, a detachment. It numbs that pain, and that will work whether it's physical pain or emotional pain. It's a numbing effect where you just sort of chill. It typically will stay in your system for up to 6 hours, and what it essentially does is it relaxes you. It causes a person to calm, their breathing to slow, but eventually, with enough of it, the breathing slows till the breathing stops, and that's what we call an overdose. Our body still needs oxygen. Some of the generic opiates, right? So we know heroin, obviously, but oxycodone, hydrocodone, morphine, codeine, fentanyl, these are all regular opiates, many of them prescribed. So again, you go to a dentist and you prescribed. I had a guy, like a very straight-laced guy. He's telling me about, he went to his dentist to have his teeth done, whatever it is. He was prescribed his opiates, and he's following on the bottle, every 3 hours or every 4 hours, whatever it is. And he's taking it, really, the pain was gone already. But, he's by the book, and he's taking until his wife, stopped, what's going on, man? After a couple of days, he was just loopy. He just wasn't himself. But he didn't realize, because he's following, doctor's orders. But it's a regular pain medicine that's given, and it's essentially the same thing as getting heroin on the street. Interestingly, some of the methadone, which are actually used to detox, which is a whole separate discussion, also contains opiates in it. Fentanyl is particularly important to know about. Fentanyl is a synthetic opiate, and that's been really a huge problem in New York, really across America, because it's made in labs and then it's cut into a lot of other drugs. So, we have people who will only smoke pot because pot's all natural, it's fine, and I never do anything else, I'll never do anything else. And, I have one guy like that, he'll never do anything, it's all natural, and we buried him from an opiate overdose. I had another guy who ended up going to rehab, and when they tested him coming in, because he was only smoking pot, but I guess it was just way out of hand, and he had crazy amounts of opiate in his system, which he had never done opiates, but everything is cut into it. And the weird thing is that dealers don't mind, as dangerous as fentanyl is. Yeah, I actually have a slide with that. Fentanyl is much more potent. It's 100 times more potent than heroin and street heroin, and it can be fatal in very small doses. And they'll cut this into other drugs that would otherwise be innocuous. And actually, what it's sort of counterintuitive, but it makes sense when you think about it. When you have a dealer that sells and they have an overdose, it actually increases sales, because to the population buying it, that means he's got good stuff, and if they actually come and get more. So you would say, why would they use this? Why would they cut it in? But it makes it good, it makes it addictive, and it keeps people coming back, or keeps other people coming back. But fentanyl has been a big problem, and fentanyl, just to be aware of it, it has been cut into many other drugs. So you may think, if you don't know your supplier, which you shouldn't do any drugs, drugs are bad, but if you don't know where you're getting it from, it's not always as clean as you imagine, and that can be a huge problem. Effectively, just
and there's no way to know. There's testing.
They
kits.
have test kits now that you could, I might have one with me. I don't think so, but I just have to get out. But they do have fentanyl test kits. But
Then how does it test? Like, you blow into it? Like,
no, you're testing the drug.
You take a little bit of what it
You
is. You crush it, you put it in the water, you take the test strip, you put it in. I've seen the TikToks about it.
right, but there's no way to tell what a person took.
What
Before
person's
you
on?
take anything, you should test it, essentially.
No, after a person takes something, there's no way to tell.
I mean, we have urine tests and blood tests,
That's
saliva tests.
not an instant, like,
You can guess, you could observe people and see.
that's in a lot
Also,
of
different things
That's
will
how-
give you different reactions in different ways to make you act different ways. So if you kind of know what the general things are, you can kind of connect it for yourself, kind of.
You
as best
could
can.
take an educated guess if you know what symptoms you're looking for.
Right.
But really, the best way to know is ask them or ask their friends who they're with. Like if you come and somebody's overdose or reacting or listen to the people who are there. I had a kid just tell me this. He was with a friend. They must have acid or something. But they were tripping and somebody called Sella because he was on whatever. They call it Sella, and Sella comes in and he tries to stop them to try to listen. This guy's tripping. Here's what he's on. Here's what he took. And of course, because they just kind of pushed him to the side, they want to deal. But coming in there with somebody who's hallucinating and going through not a pleasant trip, they may have agitated it more. But listen to people who are there. Be aware of what it is. I mean, the best thing, the best test is don't use drugs.
Are most overdoses coming from stuff that's laced, or people purposefully taking what they wanted to take and overdosing on it?
Are most of us coming from? You're not saying that people looking to overdose. You're saying they were taking something that they knew
Yeah.
what it was.
If they were taking, let's say, an opioid, is it more likely that they're going to overdose when they're taking the actual thing, or if they're laced? Or which one's more common to overdose on?
I actually want to get into it in a second.
Okay.
Let's see why. You had a question.
Yeah, the thing you just said about someone having to call it someone, what was he taking?
What were they on at the time?
Yeah. Was it just weed?
No. They were tripping. It was hallucinogenics. Although I've had people who have to be also just weed
So there
also.
are people talking about weed.
It does happen. One of the issues that I have with weed, and that's not what this is really about, is because everyone could point to somebody and say, hey, look, he does it and she does it and they're totally fine and they're functional and whatever, which the truth is you don't really know that because I deal with their kids or their spouse or whatever that's going on, and there are all sorts of other things going on. But even, let's say, everyone loves to point to that guy and say, well, he has his company and he gets up for work and he's all great. But what about the 100 people that are not successful? Everyone assumes that I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to imagine that's okay, this illusion of safety, and it's not true, particularly at younger ages. For a multitude, this isn't about marijuana, so I'm sorry. But particularly at younger ages, because it can cause severe psychotic issues. It's more rare, generally, most people handle it, but there are definitely, I've dealt with quite a few who never recovered, like just smoking pot, not laced. They smoked with other people who were fine and never recovered. Like one was full-blown schizophrenia. Would that have happened anyways? It's hard to know. This certainly was the catalyst that caused it. That's not everybody. And there's all sorts of social and emotional and developmental issues that develop as a result of not coping with life and not dealing with things. But that's an aside. But no, they were dealing with the psychedelics. Probably weed also, but that wasn't the primary. Anyways, back to opiates. So opiates are painkillers. Essentially, we have opioid receptors in our brain. Again, very basic, simple. What the opiates do is they fill those receptors and give us, and thereby blocking the sense of pain, which again our body needs, right? Which is what the issue really is, right? Because what we say, the overdose slows breathing stops, right? And that is what leads to the overdose, right? Eventually that's brain death, etc., and regular death. Because typically when we stop breathing, that's really uncomfortable, and our brain tells us, hey, that's a problem. But when I don't feel that, I don't see it's a problem. right? So opiates fill these receptors in the brain.
You're
block-
saying that there's no warnings.
Pain is a
People are
message that
right.
our body's telling us that there's something
Something's
wrong,
wrong.
right? You step on glass and you're bleeding out, you want to know that, right? You stop breathing and that's uncomfortable. And the truth is, the emotional pain is no different.
Right.
It's a scream that, hey, there's something here that we should deal with. Sometimes it's overwhelming. We want to just numb it. But there's a cost at that. Yeah.
It also happens extremely fast, like extremely fast. The person goes from being okay and then instantly they're not okay. Like it's not like
With opiates?
With opiates
Well, it depends how much you're
specifically.
taking.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks they're a chemist and can, like,
Exactly,
you
and
know,
then the
work
next
it.
thing you know, like you like think the person's dead, and then they're not. So it's better not to risk it, thinking like, oh, but like this time I was good. Like next time you might not be.
that is definitely true. Also, you know, what exactly you're taking and the method of taking it also plays a big role. But anyways, receptors in our brain, and it fills with receptors, and that's what blocks the pain, and therefore we don't get those messages. So what puts people at a greater risk of overdose? So change in tolerance. Essentially, when we start using, we build up a tolerance for it. And what gets you high the first time, right, is not necessarily the same thing that you'll need that second time, that second go around, right? You need much more to create that same high. And that's what we're talking about, chasing the high. So when a person stops using, then their tolerance goes back. Now, that doesn't matter why they stop using. It doesn't matter if they went clean, or if they went to jail, or if they went to rehab, or whatever host of reasons, but their tolerance goes down. And this is really a huge one, and I think this is where most of our overdoses are. And it's actually really sad because that's where we see a lot of the overdoses, is when people do go clean. They go to rehab, they get their life together, they're doing well, and then they have a bad day. And you know, it doesn't mean that's anything major, but they have that bad day and they go back. And all the addicts know this, so they always will cut back, but they don't necessarily remember that how little it took that first time to get high. And, you know, now I'm doing a bag and then I just needed, you know, I needed 1 pill and now I'm taking 12 pills. It's like, okay, so they cut back and they only take 6, but it's still a huge amount for somebody who hasn't been using in 6 months. And it's really rough because the family has gone through so much, and they've gone through so much, and they've come so far, and they're finally at that point where they're doing well, and they're clean and doing well, and it's a little bump, and then it goes off. That's really where I would say we see most of our overdoses. So they're intentionally using it, but they're not necessarily as aware about what the right levels for them are. Mixing drugs. When it comes to drug use, 1 + 1 does not equal 2. 1 + 1 is like 14. So that means, you know that you could take, one hit and you could drink a beer and you could handle all those things. But when you combine them, it's very different, right? You start popping, it's gonna get the better, right? Opiates together with alcohol, and you're like, I've always handled my 2 beers, it's not a big deal. And now you're doing it together with it, that also increases the chance of the overdose. Variation in strength and content of drugs, that's sharing drugs, right? So I don't have what I usually take, I'm all out, so I go to my buddy, so he goes, oh yeah, sure, take the same thing, but I'm not really aware. It's a different dealer, it's a different pill, right? So that contributes to many of the overdoses. Previous experience of a non-fatal overdose. So if somebody overdosed, but it wasn't fatal, they are significantly more likely, if they're to have another overdose, for that to be fatal.
Because
We'll get into that in a minute. Using alone. So contrary to what people believe, most overdoses, like true overdoses, aren't that needle in the arm, don't happen instantly. Again, you lose yourself very quickly, where you think you're in control and then you're not, but the actual overdose typically, it's only about 15% of the overdoses that happen, that like instant. Most overdoses happen over the course of 2 to 3 hours.
That's why
So an actual overdose, meaning he could be out for a while till it becomes fatal, but that really means using alone really increases the risk of a fatal overdose. If you're using with people, if other people are around, people see it, people are there to intervene. Particularly, talk about Narcan, which we'll get into, but it could truly save a life. And if people are there and they know what they're saying, they know what to do, and they have Narcan, they could really save a person's life. And when you're alone, it doesn't have that. And my favorite, use of any opioids greatly increases your risk of a fatal overdose. You're far less likely to overdose when you don't do drugs. Yeah.
With the timing where you say where it would take a few hours where they're out before they're having a fatal overdose, that entire time, is there a way to know that they took too much or that they're going to be dying?
So, yeah, we'll get into it as a bystander,
Uh,
right? That's what we're going to talk about, is how do you see the signs and what can you do about it, as opposed to the person themselves, because that's part of the problem here, is that that the overdose is them essentially passing out. They're super calm, nothing matters, and breathing is slow, and but, then they're not really conscious to deal with it.
And when someone's passing out, then it could be quick to the fatal, or doesn't it? Who knows?
Typically it takes
Because
over
there's so many variables.
Yeah, I once they have enough in their system, and they're typically taking over the course of time, then the body is slowing.
Because I feel like there's also like this concept, like, okay, they're going to sleep it off. And that, right. So how do you know, right?
Some people are still sleeping it off.
Right.
but if it's taking like a few hours, is it that they're continuously using a few hours and then they're overdosing,
So-
or that?
No, so I'm with you. If somebody is used and hasn't been using, your body is metabolizing it and it is being worked out of your system over a course of time. That's not a great idea because you don't know how much they actually took, but that's again what we're going to look for in terms of the signs that you're looking for, the symptoms that are of concern. If they're just kind of out cold, and that's what we're going to talk about, and they're every time you hit them, they murmur, they mumble. Okay, again, it's risky, especially because you're like, okay, they're good. They've been like that. You monitor them for the first hour and a half, 2 hours, and they're good. So you go chill in the other room, and then they get up and hobble to their desk and take some more and go back to sleep. And you find them in the morning, and that's not great. Essentially, the overdose physiology. So what does it do? The opioids repress the urge to breathe, right? You don't feel that it's necessary, just the burden. It just takes so much effort. Eventually, breathing slows, breathing stops, which leads to the heart stops, it stops, and ultimate death. It generally happens over the course of 1 to 3 hours. So again, those needle in the arm is 15% of them. That's what our movies show. That's what it is. They inject and they're instantly dead. Typically, it happens over the course of 1 to 3
No,
hours.
I didn't mean instantly, like within 15 minutes. No, I meant like instantly, like meaning like one day they're good, and then the next day, like one day.
In terms of developing
Yeah,
the addiction.
Like, meaning, I meant it more like in a long-term use situation, like when you never know like what day is going to be the last.
Yeah. Although I'm more concerned when they come out of rehab than when they go in, because if they manage with what they're managing, but yeah, you get one bad batch you could have been using for 10 years, and but yeah, most of us have over the course of 1 to 3 hours, which really does mean that there is, more often than not, time to intervene if you know what you're looking for, if you have Narcan. There is a time. So what's Narcan? So Narcan is a safe, effective medication that reverses the effects of an opiate overdose, and really almost instantly. Essentially what it does, right? We talked about the receptors in the brain. Essentially, Narcan will knock those receptors off and bind more tightly than the opioid, not allowing the opioid any place to bind, and which means instantly it's on back. It has no effect if opiates aren't present, which means two things. It means if somebody is overdosing on something else, Narcan won't work, right? So if somebody's overdosing on alcohol, cocaine, Narcan won't help. That doesn't mean don't give it. Give it, because remember, it doesn't hurt. Right? It has no effect if opiates aren't present. There are no known addiction, no risk of dependence, no known allergies, no side effects. There's no negative, really. So if you think that it might be an opiate overdose, it's worth it. But again, it's completely safe. It will almost instantly, really reverse the effects of opiate overdose. And it used to be by prescription only, but now they changed that. You could buy it in a pharmacy. We give it out for free. Narcan, they say, usually takes 2 to 3 minutes for it to take effect. Opiates stay into your system for up to 6 hours, whereas Narcan is 60 to 90 minutes. Now, the problem is that what happens, if you give somebody Narcan, you'd love to see them like all appreciative, but they're not often so appreciative because you just also may have saved their life. You also took away that high or brought back all those feelings, and it's not always so great. So often, their goal at that point is to try to get that high back. The problem is, what happens if they take any opiates now?
They still
Still
have
in
it
the system.
There's definitely gonna
Well, what happens is
They're gonna keep taking
it's
it.
nothing, right? Because you just Narcan them, so they're going to take more opiates, but nothing happens. The problem is the
But when you
Narcan,
start at the 6 hours.
right? The Narcan wears off after 90 minutes. The opiates, that was enough to overdose them the first time, is still in their system, and that lasts 6 hours, and they just spent the last 90 minutes adding, trying to get that high back, which is why, if they're to overdose a second time, that next overdose is very often fatal. Which is why it's super important that if you are ever in that situation where you have to Narcan somebody, really, you want to stay with them, and you want to make sure that they're not using it. So again, if you suspect that maybe an opiate overdose, then give it. Again, you don't necessarily know. That doesn't mean you're going to walk over to random, homeless people, of course, sleeping on the subway. They probably won't appreciate you shoving something up their nose. But if you have reason to believe, then there is no downside to it. So, signs of opiate overdose. Signs of opiate overdose is essentially, like we said, right? It's that slowness of breathing until the breathing stops. What you're looking for is slow to stop breathing. Bluish, grayish lips or nails, right? That's the restricted blood flow. And a general unresponsiveness. And certainly if they're with friends or other people and you could verify that, hey, they're passed out because they were just, doing lines of heroin, then that's probably, a good thing to go on. But basically what you're looking for is that general unresponsive, which doesn't mean that, again, you're going over to any random person sleeping. The first thing you want to do is try to wake them up. They talk about a sternum rub, which is like kind of uncomfortable. If it's your friend, kick them around a little bit, try to get them to wake up. But if you're really not getting a response, it's different when you try to wake up a drunk person, right? They kind of murmur, mumble, slur their words, but okay, that they're there. Here you're getting, you're not really hearing much breathing, or it's very, very slow breathing, and you really can't get much of a response. We'd have to say, do call 911. And I would say if you're on your own, right, if you're the only one there, I would call 911 before giving the Narcan, because as soon as you give that Narcan, really quickly, they're going to wake up, and then you're going to have a whole lot to deal with, and calling 911 might not be a great idea, or may not be so simple. If you're there and there are other people around as well, instruct somebody else, you call 911, and then somebody else give the Narcan. There is the Good Samaritan law, which is essentially is tell you to call 911, that you're not going to be charged with anything related to this, right? But essentially they would respond to these overdoses, and there were tons of people around, and nobody called 911 because everyone's afraid that they call 911, the cops are going to show up, and there's drugs all over the place. That's not great. All right. Now, if you have an outstanding warrant in 17 states, maybe let somebody else give it and you leave, right? It doesn't mean that it covers you on everything, right? If you're the FBI is most wanted.
Does it cover other people using around them?
It covers, I don't remember what level, felony, a certain level. That means that if they show up and you have mounds of cocaine on your table, I can't tell you, they can be like, okay, that's cool, carry on. Also, if you're partying, tell everybody else to leave, right? Call 911, everybody else should go home. Whoever's dealing with the overdose should deal with the overdose. Everybody should go. It's not like this blanket, like, okay, chill, they're going to show up and then we're going to, the music's still going.
That's like my least favorite thing ever, when people make it into like a spectacle. It's just like, this isn't like an entertainment on Friday night. It's not.
Yeah. But really, you send everybody, somebody should call 911, because, again, you don't want to leave the person, save their life, only find out that they used again, and then you ready? So basically, you show up, right? Somebody's passed out. You have reason to believe, right? You're trying to wake them up. They're not moving, slow breathing. Right? It might be an opiate overdose. We're going to believe. In the kit, each kit has 2 Narcans in it. There's 4 milligrams in each one. Each one is a single dose. It's a nasal spray. It's really simple. Right? Pull it back. Peel it open.
Do they expire?
This is the whole thing. There's no cap on it. There's no anything. one button. You'll see when she does it that it's knock yourself out.
So when I
What's in the ruffle? She has a big one.
Now wait, do I go more up?
Oh, it's always in the
That's it.
nose?
God
Did it work?
Look at it. Ask her, did it work?
Yeah, I think it worked. I don't know. I
conscious.
never felt it.
Are you
Wait,
gonna stop
hold
the
up,
drugs
hold up
now?
the piece for a second. Show them.
I was picturing like an EpiPen.
But
it's
that's it. Well, you don't have to take that out. That's the point. The point is that once it's done,
Just drip.
more the
It's
or like
one. Give me a second.
Single use.
Right? Once it's done, it's done. It's a single press.
so it's a one-time dose.
Right? Each kit comes with a
Can't
second.
reuse it again for
No, single
need another
dose.
one.
Now, if you give it and they don't respond, the kit does come with a second dose. Use the second dose.
Even though it might not be.
Twice.
No, it's the
No,
second
that's
dose.
the
She has the
second
first one.
If
Now, if you have to give the second one, typically we say do it in the other nostril, but that's not like crucial. Like if you don't remember, just give it. Right? The reason I say put it in the second nostril because we don't see what's going on. Maybe there's a blockage. Maybe there's whatever going on. But you want to give it. Everything goes to the same place. It's just kind of like hedge your bets. But if you don't remember, give them the Narcan. But this is part of the reason why we're going to call 911 because if your Narcan doesn't work, if they're not coming through, or there's something else going on that's not just heroin related, they could respond to that. They can inject the Narcan. They could give different doses. They could give more. They could handle it if he wakes up, kicking and
That's what I'm
breaking
saying, like,
things.
if there was like a rock of like cocaine, right? And then you start it and then it would push back the cocaine, like that could
Well,
be
this won't help with cocaine
problematic.
anyways.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So could it potentially make it more problematic in that sense? That you'd be also,
If they're passed out and overdosed at this point,
I guess, yeah, nothing to
I mean, like, I don't know if there's more problematic
I'd
than
like to
that.
not explain my question.
I had a girl come to my house to do a Narcan training, like a basic aqua girl. She saw it, she like didn't fit in. Everybody else there had friends, they were using, just clean. And she came because she heard about it. She's like, my brother's using something, I don't know what. And she came. She called me like literally 2 days later that her brother overdosed. And she said, because I was there, I knew exactly what was happening. I knew exactly what to do. I had the Narcan. And she saved his life. She sent me a message, that he sent her from the emergency room. He called me about a year later. He's been clean. He wanted to come pick up Narcan for his friends. It makes a difference. If you know what it is, you never know where it'll happen, when it'll happen. It could really save a life.